Read Books Instead of My Name presents summary and analysis of We Are the Music Makers by Arthur O'Shaughnessy. The ode, popularly known by its first line, We Are the Music Makers, is the first poem in the collection Music and Moonlight by Arthur O'Shaughnessy. This ode is a treatise to artists across different realms. It uses various euphemisms like music makers, dreamers of dreams, movers and shakers to implore the artists and serenade their achievements. It describes the life of an artist, the beauty of their artworks, and their impact on the surroundings and on the world outside. The poem is the origin of the popular phrase movers and shakers. Although the original version has 9 stanzas in total, it is believed only to be 3 stanzas long due to the abridgment of Palgrave's collection. First stanza. We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. The poem makes a straightforward appeal to the artists across different realms, calls them the music makers and dreamers of dreams. Since it avoids mention of a particular art form, it implies equally to artists across the globe, across different segments, and thus the massive appeal. So, this poem gives art an encompassing definition. Wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. In these lines, the poet describes the artists and their soul searching, how they wander alone by sea breakers and sit by the desolate streams. The poet tries to focus on the desolation of spirits of these artists and ache in their hearts that actually shapes up their creativity, which is worth such admiration. World losers and world forsakers, on whom the pale moon gleams. O'Shaughnessy now builds upon the travails that these artists go through. He calls upon them the world losers and world forsakers. This highlights the difficult life the artists lead to shape up their creation. Often, it gets difficult to survive solely on their art. The pale moon points to the little or meager sustenance they manage to gain for themselves through their art. This strikes chord with most of the artists who look for a Patreon for their art, in absence of hefty inheritance or good fortune. Yet, we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. Despite that, the poet says these artists are the movers and shakers of the world. By the phrase, he means someone who colors outside the lines, people who show the world a face outside the social norms and ethos, people who are capable of moving and shaking the world and possibly build a new one, those who bring dynamicity to an otherwise static world. Second stanza. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities. In this stanza, the poet highlights the effects of the artistry on the world. The wonderful, immortal songs created by the artist's soul are capable of building the world's great cities. They are capable of building and rebuilding new cities, new settlements, new civilizations by arousing radical thoughts, feelings, and realizations in people's mind. And out of a fabulous story, we fashion an empire's glory. Similarly, out of a fabulous mythic story, they can fashion a glorious empire. This means that the fantasy that comes to an artist's mind can shape up things he builds. It is after all poems, stories, songs, paintings, and other arts that mark the glory of a civilization. We often talk about the artistic height of an empire to judge its greatness. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and 3 with a new song's measure can trample an empire down. The poet further says that one man with a dream and adequate opportunity can give a dream a concrete structure. He is the one who shall go ahead and conquer a crown. It is the element of fantasy and something mythic that revs anyone to move forward and outdo themselves. The crown refers to an extraordinary achievement. The poet adds to say, if more people come together on any such new novel idea, they can trample an empire down. That huge is the potential of artistry. At its symbolic height, it reminds one the popular adage, the pen is mightier than the sword. The artists can bring more changes in people's mind than anyone else. Third stanza. We, in the ages lying, in the buried past of the earth, built Nineveh with our sighing, and Babel itself with our mirth. In the third stanza of the ode, We Are the Music Makers, the poet continues to applaud the power of artists. The artists were present in all ages. In the past, the artists built the ancient city of Nineveh that was abandoned in 1612 BC. Sighing probably means the torture those enslaved people received to build the buildings, streets, and all. Again, Babel was created with mirth, with the artists like the architects and sculptors working together happily, and overthrew them with professing to the old of the new world's worth. For each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth. O'Shaughnessy says that the artists are capable of overthrowing the old world with their prophecy of a new world. According to him, each age is a result of dream of these artists. This is again replaced by another dream of their own. So, their dream is capable of replacing themselves to give birth to a new dream of a new modern world. This highlights the chain reaction that such an idea initiates. It goes on. To kill art is thus not possible. Art survives when nothing does. And the man who think and dream, the music makers, are really important and immortal in this world. The poem We Are the Music Makers starts on the note of pure appraisal of the artists and their dedication to the art. The first line delivers its message in a straightforward manner. It is dedicated to the artists and to their timeless creations, to the music makers who are the dreamers of dreams. And it appeals to the artists across different realms spread all over the world. The poet avoids the mention of a particular art form which intensifies its universal appeal. O'Shaughnessy has attempted to reject the concept of aestheticism, which glorifies the idea that artist's only relationship to his art itself, and has presented the artists as a harbinger of creative rebellion in the otherwise dull society. Art in this poem has a fluid definition. Art is a force which awakens people's mind and inspires them to think in a creative manner. According to the poet, being an artist is difficult. Artists live a lonely life, away from the cacophony of the society. They are often misunderstood by everyone and termed as losers and forsakers. But one must realize that it is just the inability of the common men to understand and interpret the immortal works of the artists who are beyond their comprehension. The poet highlights the dependency of the artists on a patron or on the inheritance of a good fortune to make a living. This has been a common issue amongst the artists since time immemorial. Here, the narrator wants to make it clear to the reader that to be an artist requires tremendous sacrifice, and very often that sacrifice is to live externally or in exclusion from the society. It is almost necessary to be isolated from human error and strive to see the beauty in human nature. Aloofness is vital in the creation of art as it gives them the space to utilize their creativity and imagination to produce something praiseworthy. The artists have an important role to fulfill in this world, and that is to be the movers and shakers. The use of this term implies rebellion, a rebellion against conventional existence. It is implied as a change in the status quo, especially that of art. Art does not confine itself to social, political, religious, or cultural boundaries. Art unites people and inspires imagination. The artists shape public opinion and help in building a better world consisting of people who would be determined to bring dynamicity in the drab, dull society. In the second stanza, the speaker draws our attention to the contributions of artists to the world. The poet celebrates creation and fantasy and the artist's ability to give birth to something new. They stay away from the worldly pleasures, but at the same time, they are able to address issues through their art that pushes the society forward. Artists have the gift of imagination through which they help manifest a new world, build new cities, and create a glorified empire out of their stories. They help to arouse radical thoughts, feelings, and realizations in people's mind. It further implies that the works of art outlive any other materialistic possessions. Men are bound to die, but the art they create lives forever. People draw their strength and inspiration from the work of these artists. Thus, they are creating a better world through their art. Art is a salvation in itself and has been the man's greatest achievement yet. The poet alludes to the ancient biblical cities of Nineveh and Babel to highlight the ability of artists to create and destroy. The artists belong to all ages, and every era comes with a prophecy of a new and better era. He refers to the cities of Babel and Nineveh, fostering the idea of art as divine creation. The speaker almost equates the artists with some divine figure possessing the godlike attribute of creation and destruction. The narrator clearly states the importance of the existence of artists in our society and the beneficiary roles they play. It is because they have an indomitable spirit and can manifest the most unfathomable things that are beyond our imagination. The narrator further states that the artists are capable of overthrowing the old world with their prophecy of the new world. According to him, the dreams of the artist that shape the world today are replaced by the new dreams of a modern and better era. Hence, the birth of a new dream gives rise to the birth of a new age and a better world. The poet puts the artists in the highest pedestal and renders them to be immortal, thereby reasserting the fact that even though they are the losers and forsakers, they are ultimately the movers and shakers of the world.